It was getting on towards 6 o'clock, so I thought I'd buy myself a beer and go out and sit in a deck chair by the swimming pool and have a little evening sun. In the pool itself there were 3 or 4 girls and about a dozen boys. I stood watching them. The girls were English girls from the hotel. The boys I didn't know about, but they sounded American. And I thought they were probably naval cadets who'd come ashore from the US naval training vessel which had arrived in harbour that morning. I went over and sat down under a yellow umbrella where there were 4 empty seats. It was very pleasant to sit and watch the bathers splashing about in the green water. The American sailors were getting on nicely with the English girls. They'd reached the stage where they were diving under the water and tipping them up by their legs. Just then I noticed a small, oldish man walking briskly around the edge of the pool. He was immaculately dressed in a white suit, and he walked very quickly with little bouncing strides, pushing himself high up on his toes with each step. He stopped beside me and smiled, showing 2 rows of very small, uneven teeth, slightly tarnished. I smiled back. "Excuse, please, but may I sit here?" "Certainly," I said. "Go ahead." "A fine evening. They are all evenings fine here in Jamaica." "Yes, it's wonderful here, isn't it?" "And whom might I ask are all these?" "I think they're American sailors." "Of course they are Americans. Who else in the world is going to make as much noise as that? You are not American, no?" "No, I'm not." Suddenly one of the American cadets was standing in front of us. He was dripping wet from the pool, and one of the English girls was standing there with him. "Are these chairs taken?" "No," I answered. "Mind if I sit down?" "Go ahead." "Thanks." He had a towel in his hand, and when he sat down he unrolled it and produced a pack of cigarettes and a lighter. He offered the cigarettes to the girl, and she refused. Then he offered them to me, and I took one. The little man said, "Thank you, no, but I think I have a cigar." He pulled out a crocodile case and got himself one. Then he produced a knife, which had a small scissors in it, and snipped the end of the cigar. "Here, let me give you a light." The American boy held up his lighter. That will not work in this wind." "Sure it'll work. It always works." The little man removed his unlighted cigar from his mouth, cocked his head on one side, and looked at the boy. "Always?" "Sure, never fails. Not with me, anyway." Well, well. Shall we not perhaps make a little bet on that?" He smiled at the boy. "Sure, I'll bet. Why not?" "You like to bet?" "Sure, I'll always bet." The man paused and examined his cigar, and I must say I didn't much like the way he was behaving. It seemed he was already trying to make something out of this, and to embarrass the boy. And at the same time, I had the feeling he was relishing a private little secret, all his own. He looked up again at the boy. "I like to bet too. Why don't we have a good bet on this thing? A good, big bet." "Hey, now, wait a minute. I can't do that. I'll bet you a quarter. Even bet you $1 or whatever it is over here." No. I make you very good bet. Listen to me. Outside this hotel is my car, American car from your country, Cadillac." "Hey, now, wait a minute." The boy leaned back in his deck chair and he laughed. "I can't put up that sort of property. This is crazy." "Oh, not crazy at all. You strike lighter successfully 10 times running, and Cadillac is yours. You like to have this Cadillac, yes?" "Well, sure I'd like to have a Cadillac." The boy was grinning. "What do I put up?" The little man carefully removed the red band from his still unlighted cigar. "I never ask you, my friend, to bet something you cannot afford. You understand?" "Then what do I bet?" "Oh, some small thing you can afford to give away. And if you did happen to lose it, you would not feel too bad, right?" "Well, such as what?" "Such as, perhaps, the little finger on your left hand." "My what?" The boy stopped grinning. "Yes, why not? You win, you take the car. You lose, I take the finger." "I don't get it. How do you mean you take the finger?" "I chop it off." Jumping jeepers, that's a crazy bet. Nah, I think I'll just make it $1. The little man leaned back, spread out his hands, palms upwards, and gave a tiny, contemptuous shrug of the shoulders. Well, I do not understand. You say it lights, but you will not bet. Then we forget it, yes? There was a silence then, and I could see that the little man had succeeded in disturbing the boy with his absurd proposal. Now, just let me check up on this bet of yours, he said at last. You say if I make this light a light 10 times running, I win a Cadillac. If it misses just once, then I forfeit the little finger on my left hand. Is that right? Well, certainly, that is the bet. But I think you are afraid. Well, what do we do if I lose? Do I have to hold my finger out while you chop it off? Oh, no, that would be no good, and you might be tempted to refuse to hold it out. What I should do, I should tie one of your hands to the table before we start, and I should stand here with a knife ready to go chop the moment your lighter missed. What year is the Cadillac? The boy asked. Excuse, I not understand. What year? How old is the Cadillac? Ah, how old, yes. It is last year, quite a new car. But I see you are not betting man. Americans never are. The boy paused for just a moment, and he glanced first at the English girl and then at me. Yeah, I'll bet you. Good. The little man clapped his hands together quietly once. We do it now. And you, sir, he turned to me, you would perhaps be good enough to, what you call it, to referee? Well, I said, it's a crazy bet. I don't think I like it very much. Nor do I, said the English girl. It was the first time she'd spoken. Now, are you serious about cutting off this boy's finger if he loses? I said. Oh, certainly I am. Also about giving him Cadillac if he win. Come now, we go to my room. The little man led the way back through the garden to the hotel. I live in the annex. You like to see the car first? It's just here. He took us to where we could see the front driveway of the hotel, and he stopped and pointed to a sleek, pale green Cadillac parked close by. There she is, you like? Say, that's a nice car, the boy said. All right, now we go up and see if you can win her. We followed him into the annex and up one flight of stairs. He unlocked his door and we all trooped into what was a large, pleasant double bedroom. There was a woman's dressing gown lying across the bottom of one of the beds. First, he said, we have a little martini. The drinks were on a small table in the far corner, all ready to be mixed, and there was a shaker and ice and plenty of glasses. He began to make the martini, but meanwhile he'd rung the bell, and now there was a knock on the door and a coloured maid came in. Ah, he said, putting down the bottle of gin, taking a wallet from his pocket and pulling out a £1 note. You will do something for me now, please? He gave the maid the £1. You keep that. And now we are going to play a little game in here, and I want you to go off and find for me 3 things. I want some nails, I want a hammer, and I want a chopping knife. A chopping knife? The maid opened her eyes wide. You mean a real chopping knife? Yes, of course. Come on now, please. You can find those things surely for me. Yes, sir. I'll try to get them. The little man handed round the martinis. I didn't know what to make of it all. The man seemed serious about the bet, and he seemed serious about the business of cutting off the finger. But hell, what if the boy lost? Then we'd have to rush him to the hospital in the Cadillac that he hadn't won. That would be a fine thing. Look, don't you think this is rather a silly bet? I think it's a fine bet, the boy answered. He'd already downed one large martini. I think it's a stupid, ridiculous bet, the girl said. What'll happen if you lose? It won't matter. Come to think of it, I can't remember ever in my life having had any use for the little finger on my left hand. Now, before we begin, I will present to the referee the key of the car. He produced a car key from his pocket and gave it to me. Then the coloured maid came in again. In one hand she carried a small chopper, and in the other a hammer and a bag of nails. Oh, good. You get them all. Thank you. Now you can go. He He waited until the maid had closed the door. Then he put the implements on one of the beds and said, "Now we prepare ourselves, yes?" We stood there, the boy, the girl and I, holding martinis in our hands, watching the little man at work. We watched him hammer 2 nails into the table about 6 inches apart. He didn't hammer them right home. He allowed a small part of each one to stick up. Then he tested them for firmness with his fingers. Anyone would think the son of a bitch had done this before, I told myself. He never hesitates. And now, all we want is some string. He wound it around the boy's wrist, then several times around the wide part of the hand, then he fastened it tight to the nails. He made a good job of it, and when he'd finished there wasn't any question about the boy being able to draw his hand away, but he could move his fingers. "Now please, clench the fist, all except for the little finger. You must leave the little finger sticking out, lying on the table. Excellent, excellent. Now we are ready. With your right hand you manipulate the lighter. But one moment, please." He skipped over to the bed and picked up the chopper. He came back and stood beside the table with the chopper in his hand. "We are all ready? Mr. Referee, you must say to begin." The boy was sitting quite still, holding the lighter in his right hand, looking at the chopper. "Are you ready?" "Yeah, I'm ready." "And you?" "Quite ready." And he lifted the chopper up in the air and held it there about 2 feet above the boy's finger, ready to chop. "All right. Go ahead." With his thumb, the boy raised the top of the lighter, and again with the thumb he gave the wheel a sharp flick. The flint sparked, and the wick caught fire and burned with a small yellow flame. "One," I called. He didn't blow the flame out. He closed the top of the lighter on it and waited for perhaps 5 seconds before opening it again. He flicked the wheel very strongly, and once more there was a small flame burning on the wick. 2. No one else said anything. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. Obviously it was one of those lighters that worked. 8. And as I said it, the door opened. We all turned and saw a woman standing in the doorway, a small black-haired woman, rather old, who stood there for about 2 seconds, then rushed forward shouting, "Carlos! Carlos!" She grabbed his wrist, took the chopper from him, hauled him across the room and pushed him backwards onto one of the beds. "I am sorry," the woman said. "I am so terribly sorry that this should happen. For 10 minutes I leave him alone to go and have my hair washed, and I come back and he is at it again." The boy was untying his hand from the table. The English girl and I stood there and said nothing. "He is a menace. Down where we live at home he has taken altogether 47 fingers from different people, and he has lost 11 cars. In the end they threatened to have him put away somewhere. That's why I brought him up here." "We were only having a little bet," mumbled the old man from the bed. "I suppose he bet you a car?" "Yeah," the boy answered. "A Cadillac." "He has no car. It's mine. And that makes it worse. He should bet you when he has nothing to bet with." "Well then, here's the key of your car." I put it on the table. "We were only having a little bet," mumbled the old man. "He hasn't anything left to bet with," the woman said. "He hasn't a thing in the world, not a thing. As a matter of fact, I myself won it all from him a long while ago. It took time, a lot of time, and it was hard work. But I won it all, in the end." She looked up at the boy and she smiled a slow, sad smile, and she came over and put out a hand to take the key from the table. I can see it now, that hand of hers. It had only one finger on it, and a thumb.
Terry Malloy was reading The Man from the South by Roald Dahl. The producer was Rosemary Watts.